Welcome, Freeride family, to the Freeride World Tour podcast for the 2023 season. Presented by Peak Performance, the official ski-wear partner of the Freeride World Tour, and Freeride World Tour sponsor Vibram. We give you confidence in every step on all terrain. And I'm Mark Warner, your host, so let's drop in. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Freeride World Tour podcast. This is Mark Warner, and I'm with
Derek Foose.
And this one is a little challenging.
Weird.
A little strange.
Emotional roller coaster.
Unexpected. Unexpected, and it isn't the result that we wanted. Unfortunately, this isn't the traditional recap episode of a competition, the final one. The Xtreme Verbier, because it didn't happen.
Still a lot to unpack on this one, though. It was a busy week. It was a stressful week, and we still ended up where we're at, and that's just the way she goes.
We ended up where we're at because that's where we are.
Yeah.
So the comp got it's a few hours after the comp was supposed to happen, and we'll get to that shortly. Just to get to it quickly, the Becta Ross didn't want to be ridden today.
Did not want to. No, she was angry, and life in the mountains, like, it's unpredictable. It is a roller coaster, and I would say, from my seat, everything was done to the absolute best possible way it could be done to try to get a green light, and there was just no green light available, and that's. You got to accept it.
Yeah, well, let's talk about this week then. So we've been here for almost a week, about 4 or 5 days. Today is Monday.
Tuesday.
Today's Tuesday. It's been a lot going on. Today's Tuesday, and the competition was originally confirmed for Saturday morning. I think was kind of what they're hoping for.
Yeah, the window. We were waiting for the window.
The window is coming.
The snow was great on Saturday. It snowed light, fluffy snow on top of the sort of firm wind press that was there before, that was settled, and we just never got visibility. We waited. We kept doing these updates like 11:30, 12:30, and it just didn't come. And there was like you couldn't even see two chairs ahead of you on the lift. So there was no way. You couldn't go up, you couldn't fly, the jumbo cable car couldn't run.
No.
It was just not a go. And so again, one of those days where you do everything you can, but the weather didn't cooperate. And
yeah, we recorded a little bit of with some of the riders, just to kind of, I think it was more for us to occupy a bit of time while we were up waiting at the top there to see if it was going to happen or not. I think when we first got up there, we kind of knew, and it was just kind of just waiting for the official word.
Yeah, there were moments. I mean, honestly, in the morning when we left the village of Verbier, it was kind of clear, and there was a little hope in my heart. And then we got up there to pretty much a full blizzard. I was like, all right, I mean, mountains are unpredictable. The weather can change. Maybe, there's a pocket coming, and it just never materialized all day long. I mean, we waited and waited and waited, and yeah.
They called it. They're like, okay, we'll see, because it looked like later on in the week that there was going to be a decent window. There was a big storm coming, which is kind of their concern, which ended up playing out to what they were hoping it wouldn't.
Yeah. But you know what? The whole thing here on the weekend, the festival vibe of the Xtreme was so sick to be a part of, to be around and be in. It was just like town was full. They also have the Swiss Alpine Championships here, so there's not a room to be had. There's not a couch or a floor unslept on. And the main street, the Rue de Madrin, was packed. They
closed it off to vehicles. It just becomes a walking stroll, and it was full of food trucks and partner booths and all these different types of activations. They build a big stage in the parking lot next to the Peak Performance Terrace. Peak Performance every year builds a giant patio, like in like half of the parking lot.
Yeah, it's the most firing spot on the whole street. Like huge bar there, big terrace overlooking, like looking all the way down the valley to the shop and beyond.
And just in front of the main stage, like a full stage, DJs, big screen, like fireworks.
Yeah, naked slackliners just going across that's right. In between two hotels. It was really a spectacle, and it definitely had that festival vibe, and everybody was super fired up. Even Saturday afternoon, after we hadn't run, there was still a huge buzz in town, which was real sick to be a part of and exciting. And obviously it would have been better if we had run a comp. But that just wasn't in the cards.
No, and that's what it is. But that's the great part about this event, the Verbier Extreme. After 25 years or so of doing this, they understand that it's an event beyond the on-slope competition.
Oh, big time. Yeah, it's huge. And that main stage was buzzing, you know. There was a lot going on. There was the huge rider opening ceremonies, and then they had a big signing ceremony, and the local kids and kids who traveled here were all getting in there, getting their posters and hats and t-shirts and stuff signed by their superheroes.
They had like film screenings as well. There's a couple things that happened on the main stage that we definitely should make a point of. Peak Performance, who is a huge partner and has been for many years of the Freeride World Tour, who is a sponsor of the Freeride World Tour podcast, as well as the LPP, my other show. They have announced that they are the new presenting partner of the Freeride World Tour as of next year.
Yeah, Peak Performance just leaning into their sort of their niche in the market as the Freeride brand, and they're hyped. Freeride World Tour's hyped. I'm stoked. I think it's just going to lead to bigger and better things, and that's pretty exciting.
I thought they were already all in.
But yeah, they're more all in.
yeah, absolutely. So that's going to be really exciting to see how, because I thought they were like fully involved. Well, this is that next step with Audi no longer being the presenting sponsor, left that space open. For Peak, and I don't know, maybe they're just waiting for that opportunity because they've been so involved. When I think of the Freeride World Tour, I think of Peak Performance, and now I think everybody will because they're going to be their presenting sponsor.
Yeah, and then the other huge moment on the main stage was the ceremony that they put on for Ryan Barker retiring. It was super special. It was really emotional. I mean, people all over the place were crying. They've got a video that you can check out on the Freeride World Tour website. Thank you, Raina, I think it's called, which is pretty appropriate. The guys put in blood, sweat, and tears for 15 years on the tour. You know, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that's given more, that's done more, and provided us with so many moments, around the globe. It was really special. And then Dynastar getting him those custom skis.
Yeah, the custom skis with like milestones on the ski. Like it was a picture, I think, of the Beck, and then 20 podiums, the World Championship title. It was pretty cool. And the video that they presented that everybody should go to YouTube and watch. Thank you, Raina. It's on the Freeride World Tour YouTube channel. I talked to the guys that prepared it, and they basically said, "Oh, we want to make him cry." So
it worked.
So it's a camera angle of Raina. They give him a tablet, and on that tablet and split screen is people from the Freeride World Tour, from his career, from his early days, from the current days. Jackie and his son Tor are on there, and he got a little choked up. I didn't see an actual tear.
Well, so did the whole crowd. I mean, it was beautiful.
What I thought was really cool is they started the video while all the ski men were on the stage, and the screen was just adjacent to the stage, and everybody's watching the film. But I looked down, and every single one of those riders were like, kind of looking over each other's shoulder, kind of looking through the
side curtain,
and they're all watching it there. And then Dynastar presented those skis that you'd mentioned, and then the fireworks started going off, and it was
insane.
It was a really, really special moment in a sport where very rarely do you get to make that choice where you get to dictate, hey, I'm going to retire? You know, he didn't make the cut this year, but he knew this was kind of it for him. And of course, he's going to get a wild card to ride the Beck for the last time, but unfortunately that didn't happen. We were joking about that today. He's like, well, can I come back and ride it again? I'm like, we just went through all of this. I don't know if I really can because we did all of these things.
Yeah, he's already talking about the Legends Tour. He's got Klassen up there and Dude Charlet, and it could be him. I mean, the Legends are starting to stack up. We get Xav De La Rue in there, and it'll be
the Legends
Tour.
Tour.
Yeah. I think that Steve Klassen told Rene for the Legends, you have to have at least 3 wins on the back. So it's a pretty select crew that gets to ride in that comp if they can put it together. But I'm all for it.
And that would be like because they were talking about having that after the event, the actual comp.
They were going to do it after the comp this year. They had Steve Klassen and Dude Charlet lined up. Steve Klassen has 5 wins. Having him around was such a benefit to some of the younger riders. I mean, maybe more than ever this year, there's a ton of people who had never put a track on the back. So to have a guy who's won on it 5 times, truly, like, Legends may be a slightly overused word these days, but that guy, he fills the bill completely. So everybody was using him as a resource. Like, what about this? Does that go? Has anyone ever done this? Mm-hmm. All the questions, what's the speed like? Everything. And he just took it all in stride, answered the questions from all the younger athletes. And it was pretty cool to see. But yeah, I love the idea. Reina's already scheming on his next move
already. And if you want a little bit more information, about Reina, his career, and his thoughts on everything that's been going on this week with his retirement, the very last episode of the Freeride World Tour podcast, I sat down with him and had a really, really good chat. We told some good stories. I tried to make him cry a little bit too, but I didn't think that was going to happen. But he's really been enjoying himself this week. He's really had a good time. He said he had a lot of media, probably more than if he had actually won.
Yeah, just soaking it all in. Yeah,
but just being on the hill with him today, the comp didn't go down, but he was in a great mood. We did a couple laps. I think he's just really, really enjoying himself, which is cool to see. And then on that same topic, Aymar Navarro announced his retirement earlier this season that we really went in depth into earlier in the season on the podcast. And kind of talking about that, we're going to get into that kind of theme a little bit later of kind of changing of the guard, basically a refresh of the roster for the Freeride World Tour.
Yeah, but we gotta address what happened today. Today was intense. We started out the morning. We've been waiting for ages. I mean, the down days are brutal on the riders' psyches. Waiting, get up for it, then it doesn't happen. You come back down. There's peaks and valleys of emotions. This morning, the sky was blue.
It was a beautiful morning.
3 solid days. Some solid green lights in the valley. And everybody knew we were going up there to wait for avalanche control to happen. And the head guide for the Freeride World Tour, Claude Alain, was up there in the heli tossing shots. He knows exactly where to place those shots.
Carpet bombing the face,
yeah,
basically.
I mean,
like it was such a glorious morning, talking about the ups and the downs. I got up this morning and, like you said, clear. You're like, before the sun even came up, you're like, hey, there's stars out there this morning.
Clear and cold.
And we got up, and then everybody got on the gondola this morning, just as the sun started, licking up the tops of the peaks. And then we get into the next chairlift, and you see that beautiful alpenglow in the morning, and it's just, this is a perfect morning. And then we get up, and you can hear the helicopters moving, and you see them flying. You're hearing the bombs going off as riders are kind of staged up on the col, watching the helicopters fly around. And the sun was hitting the Beck just in a way that it was lighting up all the avalanches as they came down the face. You could see them billowing up and the sun shining through them, and everybody was like, oh no. I mean, the powder cloud that we could see from the bottom that came off the spindrift was enormous. With the sun just rising, shining
fully
through
up
it.
Over the ridge.
Yeah.
So the whispers started like, which part, how much. And then Nicholas Halewood and Lolo came and addressed everybody and said, look, the shots had huge results. And when you hear huge results, you think, and then when we got to the top of the jumbo cable car and actually saw what huge results meant, it was very clear to everyone that this comp is not happening.
And just to back it up a little bit, so just to paint the picture, so all the athletes were waiting at the bottom of the jumbo gondola, the lift that brings you to the top of the viewing area to the back, and everybody was waiting down below because they hadn't opened it because they were still finishing with the bombing, and that's where they made the announcement saying, hey. So it's kind of like everybody's on edge, nerves. Is this going to happen? Is it not going to happen? And it was almost like, I don't even know how to explain it. The air was let out of the balloon, but it wasn't a pop. It's as if you untied it and then slowly deflated it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what the feeling was. There was a lot of disappointment. Well,
initially, applause, hugs, congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
Sportsmanship on this tour is spectacular. I can't think of really anybody being upset with anybody else for what they've done. Well, everybody's.
Oh, the effort was sure there.
Everybody's. A lot of riders were upset. Because they didn't get to ride the Beck for one, because that's an exciting thing for them. Several of the riders had an opportunity to take the title. Many, actually.
Yeah, lots.
It was probably one of the closest years we've had in a long time.
Yeah, minus snowboard women, which Katie wrapped up in Fieberbrunn. Everything else was pretty wide open, and there were a lot of big plans and a lot of excitement because it did snow a lot, and you when it's snowing like that, you always wonder, because we couldn't get up there and see it.
Yep.
What's happening? Is it going to be the greatest extreme Verbier we've ever seen with all this storm snow? And the wind and the snow obviously didn't cooperate with that, or wouldn't stick to the face.
Yeah. So there was a lot of congratulations, a lot of hugs, a lot of high fives, a lot of oh my God, because since they didn't hold the comp, the results revert to the first four events.
Yep. The current rankings before the event stand.
Currently,
we crowned 4 new world champions today, which is an exciting part of an otherwise bit of a letdown day.
So there's a lot of congratulations. And then back to what you were explaining, as we got to the top and you realize how huge it really was, we're talking 4, 5, 6 foot crowns.
Yeah, for sure. 2 meters. I mean, it's so far away from the col and it looked gigantic from that distance. And the slide path ran so far it buried all the finish line equipment, the arch, the fences, the corral, all the gear that was down there. I mean, some of that stuff's probably not coming out till summer. It's under meters of snow.
And we were talking about, I actually said, well, we were having a beer earlier, and I was like, well, why didn't they just move it? Well, they haven't even been able to get up there. They've had it set up for the whole weekend, but they weren't actually able to get up there to remove it because of limited access to the lift, to the weather. You couldn't fly, so it's okay, we just need to leave this stuff here. And the Beck really didn't want to get ridden today.
Holy, yeah. I mean, 135 kilometer an hour winds recorded up there night before last, with in spots up to 50 centimeters of snow. So you can imagine.
But then the wind drifts just deposited everything onto that face.
Yeah, and they were definitely not stuck on. So the bombs did their job. I think there was maybe a small relief from my side anyway, and I'm sure some of the riders, that with the Avi conditions the way they are, because it was a 4 out of 5 on the local avalanche hazard scale, that it was a clear answer. It wasn't a maybe. It wasn't, well, this one popped, but that one didn't.
Kind of like in Kicking Horse.
Yeah, exactly. So having that clear answer of this is a hard no, full red flag, no way we're doing it, was a relief, in the sense of we're not going to see somebody go up there and kick out a pocket somewhere, because obviously on a mountain that size, you can't control every single micro feature or macro feature in the case of the Bec des Rosses, but it was a very clear call, and there's I can't think of a single person that I talked to that was like, "Oh, we should be up there."
It was full, no doubt. Yeah, when you got up there, you're like, "Oh my goodness." Yeah. Okay, yeah, well, there you go. So let's give some attention to these champions.
Yeah, we crowned some champs today.
Freeride World Tour 2023 champions.
Yeah, as we said, snowboard women, it was locked in beforehand in Fieberbrunn because Katie Anderson just dominant this year, 3 wins, 3 counting events. So she got that title. Of course, Anna Orlova and Estelle Rosolio wanted to battle it out for that second spot. And we had Marianne Erti in the field as a wild card. And I know Katie was really keen to see how she stacks up to the queen. You know, Marianne with 4 titles, Katie's just won her first. Is Katie going to go on a run, win 4 or 5 more, whatever? That head-to-head was really exciting. And both Katie and Marianne in separate conversations were pretty excited to have that opportunity. They didn't get it. The title was decided before, but still nice to see Katie standing on the top of the podium, a Canadian Freeride World Tour champion with that giant trophy over her head.
The first Canadian Freeride World Tour champion, I believe.
Yeah, it's definitely in the era of FWTs since Free Skiing World Tour, in their days. Very exciting, and to see that happen for Katie, so sick.
Before we move on to the other categories, there were a handful of wild cards for this event. Riders that we know, obviously Reina we talked about. We had Leo Slemet was on the wild card list, as well as Sybille Blancjean, who missed the cut this year, but in the challengers.
Yeah, she's sitting pretty.
It's
not a given, but it's getting there.
She's on the top spot, which makes sense because A, she's performed on the challengers. She won this event last year. This is her home. So it's just kind of a no-brainer for her to be as a wild card as well. And then, of course, Marianne Erti, who is the queen. Yeah. She's won on this face. She's a 4-time Freeride World Tour champion. She's welcome. She could just... I was joking with her today or was it you we were joking today? She could just wait to see what the conditions are going to be like and then be like, hey, I want to ride this. Yeah. Can I get a wild card?
Yes. Always yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then snowboard men, we had Victor De La Rue back in the mix. He was out with injury. He's got a couple wins on the back and a couple titles under his belt as well. So snowboard men, that was another exciting one that I was really looking forward to seeing. But didn't happen. And that means Ludo Guiodiat, the grinder, is the Freeride world champion. And what a journey this guy has been on. I mean, just grit. I mean, that's grit and that never give up attitude, learn, progress. And now he's world champion. And it's such an inspiring story.
And so I had my little handheld microphone down in the Finnish corral. And I went over, talked to him, and just got a little clip to see how he's feeling, and we talked about that specifically a little bit, and this is what he had to say. Ludovic Guiodiat, congratulations. You are the 2023 Freeride World Tour champion. How does that feel, man?
Oh, it's just amazing. You can't know what I feel today. It's it's a children's dream, and to be here with this title, it's just my best day. It's the best day.
And it's, I think, more exciting and more valuable because you've had quite a journey to get onto the Freeride World Tour. How many times have you been on and then got cut and then got back on?
Yeah, it's my 7th season on the tour, but I did a lot of season on the qualifier and a lot of up and down with the big injuries in USA on the Freeride World Tour in 2015. And I had 3 surgery on my left knee, and it was really hard a lot of work to come back, and finally ran again the qualifier, come back on the World Tour, and this year world champion. Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, if anybody deserves it for the amount of work that they put in, it's absolutely you. And Derek and I were talking about that, and it seemed like this year versus some of the other years, you put everything that you've experienced, all your knowledge, and you've managed to make it work. You put it all together, and every run that we've seen you do, it's like, he's figured it out.
Yeah, and maybe last year it was more difficult for me to ride without pressure, because typically I came back from the Freeride qualifier, and I would like to prove something. And this year I feel totally liberated on my ride, and just can express myself how I can do at home with friends. So it's how I like to ride, and the ride what I want to show.
So basically you just had a little bit more fun this year. You relaxed a little bit, and you were able to just ride freer, and it showed.
Yeah, I took a lot of pleasure on my board, and riding was fun. The team was fun. My roommate, I live a lot of good things with him, Oscar Mandin. It's a young guy, but really sympathetic. Yeah, a lot of pleasure to fight for the title. So I will come back next year and try to have another one.
So, going back and forth, do you think it was important for your current riding to go back to the Challenger Series, go back down and maybe fine-tune, maybe compete against some riders that maybe are not as good as you? How did that kind of help with your success today?
I'm pretty sure that what I learn everything on the qualifier series, and maybe that's a good message for all these young guns, that a lot of them want to go on the tour really quick. I just want to give the message to them: no worries, it's where you learn. So take time to make juniors, qualifiers, and after, when you will arrive on the World Tour, you will be ready to win comps.
Right. And even sometimes if you end up having to go back to the Challenger or the qualifier, like yourself, like Valet, like Jonathan Penfield, all three of you are on the podium today. You go back, you fine-tune your craft, and then you bring that knowledge and that experience back.
Yeah, it's a way to question yourself, and to work more and more, and maybe for myself to try to put more freestyle on my runs, and finally it's a benefit for this season, for example.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. You are...
Thank you.
World champion.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. So happy with that.
Let's go celebrate.
Yeah, let's go celebrate.
And then, so, honorable mention to Jonathan Penfield, second place, and then rookie Liam Rivera, who is from here. He's riding from Mexico, which is great. Mexican rider, first ever on the tour, but been living in Switzerland for a long time. First season on the tour, on the podium, on the overall.
Impressive season for Liam. He's definitely showed, in my eyes, a maturity beyond his age, at least in terms of competition. He's been really calculated, sendy when it's time to get sendy, but smart when it's time to be smart. And it's been really a pleasure to see him. I mean, Ludo and John Pao, you can only describe them as veterans. They've been at this for a while. They're very good at it. They know exactly what they're doing. They're super calculated. So for a rookie to be in that air with those two guys on the podium in the overall is really, really impressive. So ski women, another maple leaf on top. Justine Dufour-Lapointe coming straight out of the mogul field onto the Freeride World Tour. She was an unknown, a big question mark coming in as a wild card.
And well documented on this show over a few episodes. She was here a year ago, checking things out.
Yeah, a bit of a guest of Peak Performance. She's obviously a peak athlete.
The seed has been planted, just had started to germinate. Do I want to do this? Heavily influenced by Hedvig Vessel and what she was able to do on the tour. And like last year, she was like, maybe I should do this. She went to New Zealand and trained. She spent some time in Austria and trained with Stefan Hausel, who's been her coach. She spent some time in Whistler with you and the Whistler Freeride Club. I got to ski a POW day with her. She actually came up to me. She's like, did you ever, back then when we skied that day, did you think I'd be here? I said, nope. She smacked me. And I was like, but it was so early. And like, who could have known that someone with a mogul background with very little freeriding experience could take the overall title? And that's just a testament to her physical ability, her mental drive, her focus, like kudos to Justine.
And she did her homework. She really did her homework. She worked hard. She, bringing in Stefan is a huge, huge testament to what you can get out of somebody who knows this sport inside out. And of course, yeah, she's talented. She's extremely coordinated. She knows how to turn a ski, but man, like her goal was to be in the mix and make the cut. And so I'd say overshot the goal by a pretty significant margin, and full kudos to, the Canadian women really getting it done this year on the Freeride World Tour. Two champs, and it's a real strong start. And now she's going to be back for more, hungry to take on the Bec des Roses after, another season of experience of skiing in big mountains and kind of figuring things out. I think the future is bright.
Then Molly Armanino, who had some ups and some downs this season, but really showed a lot of potential. I think she's going to be very dangerous next year. Coming onto the tour as a rookie, as we were talking earlier today, rookies all over the podium. And she definitely has showed her ability. And I think with this season and the experience that she's gained and the lessons that she's learned, I think she's going to be extremely dangerous next year.
Oh yeah, Molly's smart. Molly doesn't ever let any opportunity to learn something pass her by. Her skiing is on point.
She's got a very unique approach to the lines that she skis and just the way she sees the mountain, which is different from most of the women in the field.
100%. And you give her a full season under her belt, and all those lessons are going to kind of come to bear. And I will not be surprised to see Molly standing on top of multiple podiums next year on the Freeride World Tour. She's like ready to pounce.
2 second places throughout the season and a second overall. And then Megan Batan, who had a slow start to the year and brought it right back around and found her way onto the podium.
Yeah, I talk about it in ski women, but it applies to all categories right now except ski men. We've got rookies on every single overall podium. Justine, call her a wildcard, call her a rookie, Molly and Megan. Estelle Rosolio on the snowboard women's side, brand new to the tour. She's third overall. Liam Rivera, young, but like I said, super mature. Like the rookies really had a bit of a year this year, and it was cool to see the kind of overall impact they had on the Freeride World Tour.
And then quickly back to that, I just realized, yes, Justine Dufour-Lapointe was a wild card this year. Rookie, but also a wild card. So, that the FWT doesn't just randomly pick people, right? Sometimes they just nail it. Like, this person's going to be great for this tour. Justine put everything into it, and it paid off. So it makes them look good.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when a wild card makes you look good, then you look good. You're great at making decisions.
And then maybe you get a little bit more of a pass from the Instagram commenters when they decide to create give a wild card out. Be like, hey, well, look at our track record.
Yeah, and it's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing to hand a wild card to somebody that's unknown in the sport. I mean, a couple of Olympic medals is a pretty good indication that you're comfortable under pressure and able to rise to big occasions.
Yep.
But it's
familiar with competition.
Yeah. It's not a given. It's not a given at all. And so that's cool. Yeah. The rookies and Justine with the wild card, but still a rookie in this space,
right?
Really delivering. And then ski men, not so much with the rookies. We've got a new world champion, another peak rider, Valley Rayner, the Austrian kid. What a path. Like, he got cut last year.
Yeah.
And now he's world champ. That
seems to be a theme that we've come back to a lot this season, that we've talked about a lot, and I think about a lot, which we just mentioned with Ludo, grinding off the tour, on the tour, off the tour, and then going back to that, I guess, challenger level to kind of hone your craft. Ride against riders who aren't quite as good as you, or maybe you're a little bit more relaxed, or maybe not. The pressure isn't as high. I don't know if that's a thing.
Yeah,
or not,
maybe they are, and then you learn a lot if you go back to the challengers and get smoked. And we got Katie, same thing. Katie got cut last year,
right?
So we have 2 champs out of 4 categories that got cut last year, and Ludo the year before.
So 3 out of the 4 have been cut off the tour, went down to the challengers / qualifiers, and are now champions.
Yeah. So
that just tells you, people that are listening, riders that are listening, if you get cut, get back on that horse.
Yeah, keep your head down and learn those lessons. And Valley Rayner will be the first guy to tell you that.
Learn those lessons and hone your craft. Focus your riding. Just get experience and use it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And all three of those champions did exactly that. Maxime Chablot was on the hunt. You know, we've seen him win a title. He was his performance in Verbier, so he was hungry to get on the back.
He was in a good mood today, though. Even though it didn't go down, he's like, okay, yeah, it's fine. I'm hungry for next year, though. I want to come back.
Yeah, you can't take anything away from Maxime. He's been on the tour for 2 years, and he's come first and second overall. That's a pretty strong start.
Yeah, you'd think so, but it's hopefully the trend doesn't continue in that direction for him. That's good. Quickly back with Valley, seeing him on the top is amazing. He got his first ever win on the tour in Andorra, and it was a really emotional win for him, having a friend pass away just days before the competition. And the guy who's really been striving and working hard, and all of the other riders were like, wow, like just had so much love to give and support for him. And they were so happy to see him win that. And then look where he's at now.
Yeah. The people's champ for sure. Obviously the guys just below him would like to be champion. But there's not too many people who would not like Valley to be champion. He's everybody's favorite. He's just such a humble guy.
Valley, congrats. You are the champion of the 2023 Freeride World Tour season. How does that sound?
Unbelievable. That's probably the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Right? Max, you've been traveling with your friend. How do you feel for this guy?
Yeah, I'm so stoked. Last year he didn't qualify, but now he's here and he won it. Pretty happy for him, man.
So obviously a little bittersweet since we couldn't run the last event today. What are some of your thoughts on that?
I would say Mother Nature was a bit on my side, although that sounds really weird because I still wanted the comp to happen. I wanted to be world champ with Verbier, but yeah, I think I still had a really, really good season. The only bummer that Max is fourth now, and I would have loved to stand on the podium with him, but...
There's a little bragging rights for next year, right?
Yeah, now I have some pressure for next year.
Yeah, he's got one up on you, Max. You got to really bring it next season.
I'm sure he will do a really good season next year. He's gonna crush it, and he's gonna be on the podium, or like on the top of the podium of the overall ranking next year, 100%. I tell you that.
So what do you think Shelby's thinking right now?
I don't know. Maybe he caused all those avalanches.
Maybe he's up there playing some tricks.
He would be proud for sure. Yeah. For him.
I know it's early. You just found out, and you have to let things sink in. But congratulations and have a great day.
Thank you. We will have a good party tonight. Although I said I will not.
Congrats, guys, on a great season.
Thank you.
His grin this afternoon, when the trophy was presented, you can't make that up.
And it was great. His dad and his girlfriend were here as well, here to celebrate with him. And I wonder now, we were joking about this before, he's the king of the cozy hoodie. I wonder now if he's going to get that peak performance.
The signature line?
The signature line of cozy hoodies.
For sure. Step up, peak.
Yeah, right? And then in third place, the tortoise.
Oh, Paul.
If you listen to the last episode, we were talking to Paul about his run in Fieberbrunn. All the young guns, all these kids that are hungry, just going mock chicken and throwing their body, hucking off of stuff. Whereas Andrew rides to the conditions, to the day. And look where it ends up. Yeah. He won last week, and now he's sitting on third overall.
5th year on tour. He is now, much as he might not like to hear it, he is the voice of experience for the riders, especially with Reina leaving. He's the one that people look to, that ask questions, and his performance this year totally backs that. That was experience. That was good judgment. He's the most self-deprecating guy. He's like,
Yeah.
I can't believe I won. I should
Exactly.
never have won.
If you end up having a conversation with Andrew about the FWT, don't listen to a word he says about himself.
Yeah.
Because he's going to tell you something different from the truth.
Well, about himself.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is about winning these comps is you have to have clean runs. And that's what Andrew does time and again. Clean runs.
He told me today, in the 5 years, I think he's only crashed once.
Yeah, he doesn't fall. He doesn't land flat. He picks different lines than everybody else, and he skis them so buttery smooth that it's so nice to watch, because maybe unlike some of the other riders, it makes me want to do that.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that I see on the tour, I'm like, I would never do
It doesn't
that.
make sense.
Yeah.
Right? It's like that isn't in my realm of ability or comprehension. Like, how is that even possible? What you watch him, it's like it's that smooth, that flow, that like ease. He makes it look so simple and so much fun.
Yeah, I love watching Andrew ski, and I love that he is on the overall podium this year, and it was really close. I mean, obviously, all of these guys wanted to have a go on the back, especially with the potential for great conditions, but it was tight all the way down, really, and we missed out on an opportunity to see that battle take place on the ultimate stage for it, but also take nothing away from the guys on the podium in ski men and in all categories, because they rode all season to earn those spots. And I think that's every one of those titles is 100% valid. And you can say what you want on Instagram, but I'm standing behind that one.
So that kind of wraps up the champions of the season. Congrats, Veli Rayner, Justine Dufour-Lapointe, Ludo Guillodia, and Katie Anderson. Congratulations, you are all FWT champions. So moving on, let's talk about some of the themes throughout the season here. One of them is weather windows and snow conditions. This has been a really, really difficult year in kind of a series of difficult years.
Complicated. Every
Yeah.
single event was complicated. The decisions were complicated. Picking which day to have the comp was complicated. Moving from Bakira to Andorra in one day because it was about to go like Sahara hot in the Pyrenees. Complicated every single time. There wasn't one that just seemed like it was going to be easy. I mean, we started the year off in Bakira where it was looking tough. And then it snowed, and it snowed a little bit more than I think everyone thought, with quite a bit of wind. We got the forerunners up there, and luckily Laurent Gauthier, one of the FWT judges, was kind of able to recognize the situation, did a very strategic ski cut on the face.
And he ruined the face.
Yeah, Larry wrecked it. Or maybe he saved a bunch of people.
Yeah. No,
He's a hero.
Yeah. Way to go, Larry. No, we're just teasing Larry because, better him as a forerunner, realizing that, cutting out the slab before it happens to a rider.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's a super experienced person in the mountains, and good call. But it was tricky then, because you had the whole central section was all washed out,
Which was a lot of the riders' lines.
And some of them still gambled on it and thought, all right, I'll ski the bed surface and it'll work. And others decided to change at the last minute, and with varied results. But either way, complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And then we wrapped it up. We're like, cool, we've got podiums.
It was a great comp too.
Yeah, we have an event in the bag, and that night
All right,
we got to get to Andorra now.
Everybody leaves tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in 2 days they set up an entire comp.
Yeah, set up and ran a comp in the backcountry outside of Arcalise.
Right, that's right. It wasn't right in the resort. It was literally on a bowl adjacent to the resort that we had to walk an hour up the mountain to get to the base of it. And the weather was heating up, and it turned out that it was another great competition. Like, that's the good thing about these weather windows, and it's a testament to the FWT production staff, which I want to give a shout out to right now. Second to none. The things that they're able to do in such a short amount of time and able to do a comp like that successfully in that short amount of time, it definitely deserves a round of applause.
Yeah, nobody getting much sleep in that time. But if we're shouting out, I want to shout out the riders, because they took it in stride, showed up there. Conditions were better for some than others. We saw some heating up through the day. Things
the last
to get a little ISO.
The last 7 or so riders in the final category, last 10, I believe, no one really put down a run.
Yeah, it was tricky, and they did it again. They are superheroes in the mountains, and they just continue to deliver these moments when it's looking like kind of against all odds. Then boom, Kicking Horse. Well, all right, we already rescheduled it from the start of the season.
That's right. That's something that seems to get forgotten. Is it was supposed to be? It's always traditionally been the third event. The last several years, it's been the third event of the season, usually held mid-February. This year, I think based on the fact that they've had good seasons to start, they were like, okay, we're going to do it as the first event. I know there's a lot of hesitation about that. And it turned out that, okay, yeah, no, this wasn't the right decision. We're moving it back to February, which I think a lot of people have kind of not forgotten, but just have stopped thinking about.
Yeah. And I want to backpedal on that a little bit, because I don't know that it wasn't the right decision. In other seasons, it could have been the right decision, but it was a tough start in that particular piece of the Purcells this year.
It was like one of the worst starts to a season they've had in a long time.
Totally. In other years, that decision could have worked. So it's hard to fault the decision to do it, but then it fully didn't work out. So right. Yeah, who's to say?
But kudos to the tour, because they gave the riders and everyone a lot of heads up. It wasn't like, 2 weeks from now, we're supposed to have this event, or like a week from now, we're going to cancel it. They gave the riders a good 3 weeks to a month, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of time,
which was really appreciated.
A bunch of the riders were
because
they were able to shuffle stuff around.
Yeah, exactly. Plane flights and hotel rooms and filming trips and all sorts of things like that. So I know that was appreciated.
Yeah.
But then now there is a comp right in the middle of this month-long window that a lot of the riders were looking forward to.
Yeah, totally. The downtime, the spring break, if you will, of the Freeride World Tour season, all of a sudden has a comp right in the middle of it. And once again, it was super tricky. Things were even still by February, dicey in that part of the world. And then it snowed a bunch. And
it was great. It was it was like a bluebird pow day on the face.
Yeah, and the Kicking Horse team, I mean, they've been dealing with this persistent weak layer in their snowpack all season long. They put a ton of time, effort, and energy into that ozone face. And still we saw, even with all of that, a couple of serious pockets release on the face during athletes' runs. And I think that brings me back to the point that it's not for nothing that the riders are required to wear a transceiver and an airbag and have a shovel and probe in their backpack. Like, these are semi-controlled backcountry faces that they're competing on. And that hazard, and we saw it in Verbier, to an even far greater extent with the slides that happened today. It's always there. It's always there in the mountains. These aren't resort mogul comps. And everything gets done to make it safe. But the dragon is lurking always, and it kind of reared its head at Kicking Horse, and luckily everyone was safe.
Yeah. With some smaller slides, I want to clarify, these riders aren't going to be setting off class 3 avalanches. Even a class 2 would be kind of like the limit, because they're not going to hold a competition on a face where that's even a possibility. You may get some big slough. You may get something that's a little bit rips out that a little bit bigger than what you may have expected with that fresh snow. But you're not going to get these big catastrophic slides because they wouldn't allow that to happen.
Well, and that we saw exactly that today in Verbier, where they put those bombs on the face. They knew there was a risk. They were unsure how great the risk was. And so the only option is to do that control work and then see. And sometimes you see that it's bonded and you're good to go. And other times you get what we got today, which is a hard no.
Yeah. I don't know if we can, how we can say it any more emphatically. There's no chance that there was a competition today. So that was Kicking Horse, but it was another great event. I loved all the face shots they were getting. That was my favorite part. I was up on the ridge on the microphone emceeing, yelling at people on the chairlift, yelling at people as they launched and put on a show. And it was another great competition in a town that really loves having the tour and goes all out.
Yeah, big time. And you know, again, the riders like Michaela Davis-Meehan putting on an absolute show in the snowboard women. It was just so cool to see the riders finally get to ride in powder. And we saw some riders rise and some riders fall with the snow conditions. Hey, maybe you haven't competed in powder in a while if you've been on the tour for a minute.
And even like a face like that too is like, depending on where the snow gets deposited, if there was wind, you know, pow in certain spots in maybe like a lee versus hitting another part of the same slope that's a little bit more exposed to the wind, you can have two very different densities of powder. So you can go and slash a turn and be like, oh, that's deep and soft, and then go and throw another turn with that same force and then get fully bucked. So it's very different from, say, the comp that we did in Andorra, which was fairly consistent top to bottom until it warmed up.
Yep.
And then you get this pow day, and you can have different consistencies of powder top to bottom.
Snowboard and ski, men and women, more punch fronts and nosedives than I can remember seeing in a comp in a really long time.
Right.
And that kind of just tells the whole story. The snow conditions had a big part in that. And those that were able to adapt found themselves, you know, up at the sharp end.
Okay, and then Fieberbrunn was a kind of a hurry up and wait situation. The riders and everybody on the tour were there you guys were there for like 10 days, a week?
The full window.
Yeah.
Yeah, the full window. Proved the concept of the weather window big time.
Which is rare because last year it seemed like most events we got to do it before the weather window. Kind of like Andorra. It was kind of that's in the theme for like the last year and a half.
Yeah.
Whereas with Fieberbrunn, that's the exact opposite.
Yeah, and the weather makes the call, and it was kind of tricky when we first got there, and then it snowed a little bit, and the face looked pretty good, and the forecast looked pretty good enough to go for it for sure. And again, I don't envy the people making those calls of when is D-Day, when are we running, and then just never quite got the light or the viz right, where anybody felt safe to start launching riders off the top. So we shut it down again for a couple of days, and it stormed that whole time, and then went boom, clear, pow face. And we saw again the powder eating people up and some people really step into the pressure and step up to the occasion.
So that kind of summarizes, you know, the theme of the weather or the competitions this year, which there wasn't really a theme, except for the fact that it was unpredictable
every single time.
It wasn't easy.
Yeah,
it was difficult. Earlier this season, you know, we've been talking a little bit about the changing of the guard, all of the rookies, all of the new riders, the new names, the new faces on the tour. You know, after the cut this year, it seems as though that changing of the guard is almost complete.
The guard has changed. I mean,
this you look at the roster on the Freeride World Tour 2 years ago, and you look at the roster next year.
Yeah,
very different.
Yeah, there's very few names that remain from some of those long-standing riders. I mean, you go through the list.
We're losing our veterans.
Yeah, Camille Armand, Jess Hodder, Craig Murray, Christopher Turdell, Erica Vikander, all not making the cut. And then we've got Aymar Navarro and Raina Barkered retiring. That's a huge amount of people that have been around for a while on the Freeride World Tour.
Staples of the tour.
And stars.
And they're the names that people think of when they think of the Freeride World Tour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's changing or changed. And we saw some hot young athletes, some people coming out of the challengers just super hungry for it, and they put their stamp on it this year, and I'm pretty excited to see where it goes. Although I'm going to say, just in total honesty, that I already miss a lot of those names that we just said, because those were people that we've gotten to know and got really enjoyed watching ride, and I know they're all going to be doing awesome awesome projects and stuff, and probably enjoying themselves. But
selfishly, it's nice to have them around because they're good people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's not to take anything away from the new riders. They're good people too, but it's just going to take us a while to get to know them.
Yeah, we got to build.
So far, I like what I see.
We got to build those friendships. Then they're on the way already. But you mentioned the Challenger. So, unfortunately, we've lost some friends and some names. But silver linings means we get to gain some new ones.
Yeah, and some familiar faces sitting pretty in positions to battle their way back.
We're going to quickly go over what's happening in the Challenger Tour this year. We're specifically going to highlight the names that have been on the tour. There's a lot to unpack. That's a whole other podcast, the FWT Challenger podcast. So let's get started over in Region 1, the Oceania region. In ski women, as we mentioned earlier before, Sybille Blangjean got wildcarded for Verbier. But that's because, A, she won it last year. B, she's from here. Verbier. And 3, she is comfortably leading the ski women category for the Challenger series here in the Oceania region, Region 1.
Yeah, Sybille making a strong charge and definitely making a case for herself to be right back on the Freeride World Tour for 2024, which is exciting to see. And then Astrid Chelus, Zuzana Vitek, who we know from the Freeride World Tour, she's also in a strong position. The ski women's field in Region 1 is looking really good, really strong. And right now, Sybille's got a pretty good thing going. And we'll see if she can hold on to it. There's still one more event, which remains to be seen where it's going to happen. The complications of hosting competitions are not over yet. We still have another big one to unlock here in Europe in Region 1. So
Right, because they've had a couple canceled, and they ended up doing one of them right after the Fieberbrunn event. Yeah,
in Fieberbrunn on the same face that the World Tour riders just rode. So that was pretty exciting to see.
Which Abel Moga, he ended up winning that event. But in the ski men, he's actually still quite a ways down the list. I think Blake Marshall and Abel, who are both former FWT athletes, I think are just sitting just below the cut line in 5th and 6th overall for that Challenger event. In snowboard men, Hugo Serra, who had a season on the tour, is sitting in 2nd place. And then in snowboard women, Nuria Castin-Baron is in 2nd place as well.
Yeah, it's still all to play for, and I think everybody in the Challengers Tour in Region 1 is desperately hoping that we're going to get that other event off, that 3rd event, and then things will start to become a little more in focus.
Right, and then there's Region 2, is the Americas. In ski women, 2 familiar names, Delilah Quinn and Olivia McNeil are sitting in 1 and 2, but 1, 2, 3, and 4 are very, very close together.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of riders in that category that have a good result and a not so good result. So the 3rd event in snowboard is really going to shuffle things, or not, depending on who performs. But the ranking list right now doesn't tell the whole story. It's definitely closer than it looks in that list. And the riders that are able to, once there are 3, have 2 good ones instead of a good and a bad, are going to be the ones that we're going to see getting that gate to the Freeride World Tour.
And there's only one left, the snowboard competition. We had Whistler about a week and a half ago, which I was there emceeing that event as well, and saw some wild things happen, things I've never seen in Whistler before, which we talked about. One of those wild lines that I've never seen ridden before is by Leif Mumma, who is working his way back onto the tour as well, but he's not quite there where he needs to be just yet.
He's another rider similar in this to what we've got in the ski women, who has 1 great result and a crash. So with 2 of 3 being the gate to the tour, if he can lock down a 2nd good result in snowbird, he'll throw away that crash that he had in Taos and kind of lock himself back into his spot on the Freeride World Tour, and definitely that's going to make a lot of people happy. The folks at Daily Free Ski are going to be pumped. The only rider on the tour that they follow. So hashtag bring back Leaf.
Bring back Leaf, yeah. Perfect. And then we have snowboard women. Michaela Davis Meehan is sitting in second place, but she's quite a ways behind top spot Erin Sauve.
Yeah, I mean, Erin Sauve is really getting it done. She had a blistering run through some 2-stars this year, and then had a crash at the Kicking Horse 4-star, trying to lock in her challenger spot. And the folks at IFSA deciding that was worthy of a wild card into the Challenger Tour. And she took that wild card and ran away with it. She's got 2 events down and she has 2 wins under her belt. So she is locked in. Nobody can catch her now she's got 2 wins. There's only 3 comps. So yeah, we're looking forward to seeing Erin Sauve. So the only one actually across both regions that we can say 100% is locked.
Right. And then snowboard men in the Americas division. I'm looking through the list here and I do not recognize a single name. Obviously I'm a skier, but none of these guys have been on the tour. Do you know any of these names?
Yeah, the 2 guys sitting on top, Brian Stenerson and Warren Doyle, kind of opposite ends of the spectrums. Stenerson, a little bit more experienced. Doyle, he's a bit of a younger rider. Both of them, though, super strong. I would consider tour-ready riders. And, deep bag of tricks, really strong board control. And I think, right now they're in those 2 spots. But there's a bunch of hungry guys just below, again, who with one more good result can step up. Tavo, he was at Junior Worlds. He's very young, but really, really strong on the board. And he's going to be hungry to get it done here. In the snowbird comp for the last challenger event, Freeride World Tour Challenger event in Region 2. So it's still all to play for all of them, minus Erin Sauve, who is sitting pretty.
So that's a little rundown of what's going on for the Freeride World Tour Challenger event. You can keep up on those rankings by going to the freerideworldtour.com website. I highly suggest that you go and just kind of cruise around the site. The season is over, but there's still a lot of things you can go back and watch other runs. You can listen to the podcast there. You can find out what's happening on the Challenger Tour because they will be putting up that information as well. So we've kind of covered everything, I think, mostly. The tour actually gives out awards for Rookies of the Year as well.
Yeah, highest placed new athlete on the tour, male and female. So regardless of sliding equipment, just highest placed new to the tour for the season. So that was an exciting one. Everyone was kind of looking through the rankings, trying to figure it out, but went to Justine Dufour-Lapointe and Liam Rivera. Those are the 2 highest placed and 2 Rookies of the Year for 2023. So that was pretty cool to see those guys get their trophies.
Absolutely. And you and I were actually discussing whether wildcards counted or not. Well, apparently it does.
Oh yeah. The rule is just new to the Freeride World Tour. So wildcards, rookies, challenger, up and coming, whatever. If you're new to the tour, you're counting in the Rookie of the Year race, and I mean, hard to argue with both of those, both in the podium for the overall, one of them taking the title. So.
And honorable mention to Molly Armanino, who was also a wildcard rookie in second place in the ski women's division. So congrats to them. They got given a big, heavy trophy to put in their bag to take home.
Yeah, Justine's got 2 giant trophies to try to figure out how to get home to Montreal. So that's going to be a bit of a tricky one. She may have to buy a new seat for the trophies.
Thinking someone might have to buy a new suitcase. And then we need to get to what we always finish the episode off with is the fun bet, the Peak Performance Fun Bet. We've been asking you listeners to join the FWT Podcast League all season, and many of you have. The season is completed. All 5 events, including the overall choices that you have made, and we have 3 winners.
Yeah, Shillman making a last gasp pass on Spawn. Spawn pretty much led the series for the whole season, and Shillman jumping up to the top step for the FWT Podcast League. So solid work out there. E-winner 14. Gets a honorable mention for coming in 3rd. Solid efforts all season long for these 3, making some pretty good predictions.
Absolutely, and I think looking at it, Spawn may have missed his last picks. Which because it looks like it got 4 out of 5 of the available picks, including the overall. Shillman got 5 out of 5, and E-winner got 4 out of 5. So next season, if you can get all of them in, you may have a better chance. I, for one, missed one.
I also missed one.
And even if I had made those choices, I would not be anywhere near the top of the podium. Because as we say, we apparently don't really know much. Derek Foose, you actually did a jump. You were in 20th and you jumped up to 14th.
All right. Well, a couple good picks there for me, finally. And yeah, definitely a tough season for our Peak Performance Fun Bet.
Yeah, absolutely. I dropped down into 22nd, and Shillman is a good 3,500 points ahead of me. He's doubled me. He's lapped me. But we had 38 people join the Peak Performance Fun Bet League, the FWT Podcast Fun Bet League, which is great. You didn't have to be in for the whole thing. You could just join episode by episode or event by event, which was awesome. So it's cool we're creating this fun little community, and we really want to thank everybody for tuning in. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, next year we'll do better.
And I guess to put a nice little bow on what's been a really interesting season, fun to talk about, fun to analyze and dissect, we want to give some big thank yous to a lot of people. Mostly all of the FWT staff and volunteers. Like it's a big family, but it's also a big team to make sure that they can create these events and get you the assets, I guess, or get you the information and the clips and the Instagram stuff and the YouTube stuff and the podcast and pretty much everything, the replay, the website. There's a lot of people that go into it. I want to give some shout outs to the comms team, Gab and Mariana specifically. We've got the operations guys. These guys do so much. The production team, all the volunteers, the judges, because they'd probably be mad at me if we didn't thank them too. And what were you saying yesterday?
Oh, they've just got such a tough job on comp day. There's 4 people happy with them and everyone else isn't. So
yeah, absolutely. And then obviously Anna Smoothie, your co-host on the broadcast, and of course you, Mr. Derek Foose, as well as yours and Nico, who are kind of the captain and first mate of the FWT ship. And of course, this podcast wouldn't be possible without the support of Peak Performance and Vibram, and of course you listening. So thanks for tuning in. We may have a few extra little bits and pieces coming out through the next month or so, just for your listening pleasure. But for all intents and purposes, this is a nice wrap up for the season.
Yeah, thanks for joining us all season long. It's been a pleasure to keep you up to date with what's going on, and looking forward to diving back in 2024.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everybody.
This has been a Redmark Media production.
For your Freeride World Champion, Valley Rainer! Justine Defoe-Lapointe! Ludo Guillaume! Katie Anderson!